Hi everyone, welcome to the PMP, the Paid Media Podcast at Digital 22. I'm Chris, I'm our lead PPC marketer. I've been here just over 2.5 years now, and I'm joined by my colleague Christian.
Hi, I'm Christian, I'm a PPC specialist here at Digital 22. I support obviously Chris with all the accounts that we manage for the PPC.
I'm also joined by our colleague Jonathan. He is the magician behind the cameras doing the audio and the visual, but hopefully you won't see him unless something's gone very, very wrong. So I said welcome to the PMP podcast. In this podcast we're discussing Google Ads, everything they do, their ever-changing goalposts, and what they do that as marketers and PPC managers really, really gets on our nerves. And we struggle to keep it to 6 points because Jonathan's very strict. We've only got half an hour time slot. So if you see any hands coming in or anything like that, it's because we've got to hurry up. So the first one that we're going with is the changes to the Google match types. So if you've ever done any sort of PPC ads, if you ran them yourself, or if you've had an organisation run them for you, you understand a little bit about match types like broad, phrase, exact. But the big one that Google made a huge fuss about like years ago when they fetched it in was the Modifier broad or the broad match modifier, which made it easier for companies to do the keyword mining pretty much, but still keep like some sort of control with it. But now they've changed that. They're moving that to the phrase match. They've changed the exact match. It just seems like they're taking all the control away from the advertiser, from the manager,
100%,
and giving it back to them. And for me, it's a massive kick in the teeth to people who spent years creating their account, getting the keyword list running, getting even the negative list. Like if you've got a list of negatives that you've been working on for, I don't know, maybe 6 to 12 months, you've got that list that is finely tuned and everything like that, and then Google comes and makes this change to the match type, which ruins everything.
100%. I think a lot of it applies to the setup as well, because obviously as we approach it, well, before obviously these changes, it was always a SCAG sort of setup where we had a BMM and an exact, and the BMM, like you said, would help you find the keywords that you're looking for if you've got no data to go off before you've set up the campaign. But I think with the removal of BMM and focusing on phrase, it completely condenses what you can actually find. And it's just making it a bit trickier. So obviously we've had to alter that, but that was obviously for me and my experience, that was a very successful setup in terms of the BMM and the exact, help you find your most relevant keywords and then move from there. But obviously with that being taken out now, I feel like the phrase match, it's going to take a bit more time to find what you're after, and it's reduced it. And to focus on broad match straight away, I think it's just far too broad.
Ridiculous.
And without the negatives to go off, it can be very difficult. It's a lot of waste spend there, especially in our sort of role.
Yeah, I mean, I did a talk before at our event, the HubSpot user group, which Jonathan will very kindly put a link to here. And in that talk, there was a slide that I did where we spoke about why it was the importance of quality score back then, and it's still important now. But he actually mentioned when I was doing my research that Google Ads make over $100 million a day just from Google Ads, just from the revenue on it. And it seems like all the changes that they ever do is just to increase that. Yeah. That's it, nothing else. It's all they want to do. It doesn't, I mean, the support, unless you're spending £100,000 a month, is awful. Like it's really, really difficult to get any sort of good support from them as an organisation, unless you're actually spending, like I say, upwards of $100,000 a month. And all it seems like these changes, like the match types and everything, is just to make them more money. I mean, I still hold this belief, and this is my own personal views, not the views of Digital 22, that Google are really, really trying to get all the control with them. So soon 100%. It'll just be pretty much, basically you set the campaign up, they'll tell you how much to spend, you'll tell them what you want, and they'll give it you if you pay them.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it, I think.
Kind of makes our job a bit obsolete at that point. But
it does.
As far as Google's concerned, as my opinion, you need that sort of human input for Google to get the best out of the campaign. So I think they're going to come up stuck at some point if they continue to sort of go down that alley.
It's massive. I mean, we're going to that point further on, like the automated, but I don't think you can ever get rid of the human eye when it comes to Google Ads. 100%. Like you can look at trends and everything. I mean, I know they're going about like the algorithms and stuff, but nothing, I don't think will ever take away from that. Like understanding the account properly, understanding the products, understanding the client, people's like search patterns. Like for me, I worked for an e-commerce client before in a previous role, and our sales would always drop when the weather was nice. Literally,
Every
like
time.
when we were in the middle of a heat wave or whatever like that, the sales would just plummet because everyone's outside enjoying the sun.
100%.
Now I understood that, and then the client understood that, but would an algorithm understand
I
that?
don't think so.
I don't think it would. It'd just
No.
look at the numbers and it'd start whacking the bids up or whatever to try and increase the.
Mm-hmm.
But it just don't get that.
No,
You know,
and on a B2B perspective, obviously through bank holidays, even this year, B2B conversions take a hit every time, and that's the same principle again. Will the AI be able to maybe reduce the spending over this time period and know what sort of seasonality it is? But
would the AI understand like a pandemic like we've been going through now? I mean, I remember like the first when we get sent home March last year.
mm-hmm.
Then I think it was the searches and the impressions for everything just went through the roof because everyone's at home all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but then like you've got some e-commerce clients where you're missing out on like your busy times, like the commute to work in the morning, people on the train on the way home and everything, searching on the mobile or on the laptop and all that kind of stuff. That you understand that when you've been doing it for as long as I have, which I won't go into because I'm one of the oldest people in the office that I keep getting reminded of.
You don't
stop
play that
laughing,
game,
Jonathan.
do you, Chris?
Stop laughing, Jonathan. So it's just one of those, like when you've done this job so long and you've got that kind of experience that could never ever be replaced by an algorithm.
100%, I couldn't agree more.
Which is yeah, and that kind of moves on to the next point, which is like the Google Ads, creation of Google Ads, like expanded text ads, which is what most people use. You get 3 headlines, up to 30 characters a headline, and then you get 2 descriptions, mm-hmm. up to 90 characters. But if you're really clever, you can get 91 because it'll always have a full stop on, but it doesn't charge you for that one. That's a freebie. You can all take that home. It's a freebie. And yeah, now they're trying to push everyone to responsive search ads, which it's just an absolute. It's the machine learning. Like when you do an ad, you spend time working with the client, mm-hmm. getting the ad copy right, making it flow properly, because it's difficult writing an ad in 30 characters. The third headline very rarely gets shown though. So you've got your first 2 headlines, but then actually getting a good ad written with a good content, a good description of the keyword, the product, the servicing, the mm-hmm. offering, and then a call to action.
100%.
So getting that done in 180 characters is difficult. But then if you've got to do a responsive search ad where it wants it wants all these different lines of 90, but then it'll show them in any particular order.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think the expanded search ad for us is just by far the best thing for us, and it's just making it difficult to actually find it because I think you touched upon it. But even
it's 5 clicks. If you go to if you set up a new Google Ads account now, it automatically takes you to responsive search ad, which is silly because there's not enough data to work with. But we'll move on to that in a second. So mm-hmm. It goes straight to responsive search ad, and then with a responsive search ad, you've got to click switch back to text ads, and then when you go to switch back to text ads, it tries to put you on an automated bidding strategy, which again is just to make Google more money.
Exactly. It's the loopholes, isn't it? It's just keeping you trying to fall for the responsive in the end, and we don't like it anyway.
It's just the automation side. I mean, for bidding strategies, so Google have changed their bidding strategies. Now, I've always been a fan of bidding strategies, but they've got a time and a place. So for Google Ads, if you're going to go on to target CPA, target ROAS, maximize conversions, any one of those, you need to have the data in your account. You need to have had at least, I'd probably say 30 to 40 conversions in the last 30 days.
Yep.
If you're an e-commerce client, possibly, and then maybe more than that. But at least
you need a lot, and you need the spend behind it, because some accounts might have been running for 6 months, for example, but if they've not spent a lot of money, they've not gathered enough data, and the AI is only as good as the data that you give it, and that's the issue with it, full stop, I think, especially when you mentioned if you create a new campaign, you can't possibly start on a bidding strategy like that, because
it'll just go through your budget because it's got nothing to go
off. Nothing to go at. It's going to do the investigation for you, which
it's expensive.
Yeah.
That's it. And as well, if you're using something like, even if people don't, so if they go with they try and put manual cost per click on, and Google always say, well, let us help you. We'll either enhance it for conversions, or we'll enhance it for cost or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But then that can easily run through 3 or 4 times your daily budget without you realising.
100%.
And I know they'll say they're leaving it out and you'll never spend more than, I think it's 30.6 times your daily budget over the course of a month. that being said, that means that it's going to pull you back on some days where you might be going well.
And for some clients, that sort of overspend is not feasible for them. They need to make sure that they're hitting their mark, and every penny is valuable to some clients, and obviously these sorts of spending over, it's just not useful for them to some extent sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, I've worked with some clients who spent, £400 a month, and I worked in house at a company and they spent like £100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So Google Ads is, if it's done properly and you take your time with it, is for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting more and more difficult now for those smaller clients who've got that smaller budget to get more out of it, because Google just wants more and more all the time. Like the average cost per clicks are going up for people. It's getting more and more aggressive. I can actually see a point where we're getting more results on the first page. So you've got, I started doing Google Ads when they did the boxes down the right hand side, and they were such an easy sell to clients. Do you want to see?
Visual.
Do you want to have your little box on the first page? And they were brilliant. But then obviously because it went all mobile, then they got rid of those, and it was like 4 ads at the top. But now it can be 4 at the top, 3 at the bottom.
Get your shopping ads in there as well.
Shopping,
extensions, a lot.
Feature snippet.
Mm-hmm.
You could get that as well. So if you're looking at those, I mean, I feel sorry for I'll never say this to them, but I feel sorry for our SEO guys, the search nerds, because when they're trying to do it, SEO is so hard now, so competitive. But then they could get to like the number 1 organic listing, and before you know it, we could build a campaign within an hour or two. It spends 30 minutes in approval, and before you know it, you've gone above them in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And that's a tough. It's tough for them guys when they're doing that. But it's just like that's that thing. It's just the money. If you pay enough on the cost per click, then no matter what, Google will put you there eventually.
100%.
I mean, so with those bidding strategies, so we've gone from, and this is from Google themselves. So they're optimizing now for conversions and conversion value. So if you had before, you had maximised conversions with a set budget and maximised conversions with a target CPA.
Mm-hmm.
That is now the updated bidding strategy, is maximised conversions with the optional target CPA. And if you had maximised conversion value with a set budget or maximised conversion value with a target ROAS, that's now been set to, honestly, so you change your target CPA, maximised conversions to the first one, and the second one is maximised conversion value and target ROAS, which is now maximise conversion value.
It's making it a minefield.
It's confusing. I mean, we're reading that from their page, and that's if you're trying to do this yourself. So if you're an in-house marketer, you're an in-house marketing manager. So you've probably got your MD breathing down your neck because we need more sales in, we need more conversions, and you're trying to run the Google ads yourself, and then Google are making all these changes just when you feel like you've got a handle on it. And then they change your bidding strategy. So for some people, I'm sure who they've got all the data in the campaign or whatever, and it's been running quite well, they're happy with it. If it's running on an automated bidding strategy, make sure you just check your search query report. You don't want anything in there that's a little bit irrelevant. But other than that, you can pretty much just leave it to run.
Mm-hmm.
Just checking it every now and again, make sure your reports are running properly. They changed the bidding strategy, it's all of a sudden everything that you had running.
Yeah,
that is the word. It is absolute chaos. Because it's just, all of a sudden, all the good work that you've been doing,
start from scratch again.
You're starting from scratch again, and that's where it's not really fair. But then Google will say that they're trying to help you out. This takes us seamlessly onto our next point. It's almost like I've written this down somewhere about smart campaigns.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one thing with Google that absolutely irritates me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this absolutely, it winds me up more than people who don't indicate. I mean, that's a lot. But I mean, why would someone who's just setting up Google Ads, and they're a new company, they're going into it, they've got some budget, and we'll create you a campaign, and we won't do any keywords. You just put in some suggestions, and we'll go from there. And don't create an ad. Just give us some stuff, and we'll just grab some stuff off your website. And you won't, if it does work well, on the very, very slim off chance that it does work well, you won't be able to scale it up or anything, and all you can do is turn it off.
Yeah, literally. Can you imagine us producing that for a client to begin with? Just, we'll scrape a few keywords off the site and go from there. It kind of just takes it all out of it, to be fair.
I mean, there's no research, there's no landing page, there's no conversion points, there's no testing, there's no just finding out about the client. Like I love having a discovery call with the client. I like jumping on weekly calls with the client, because you get that relationship with them. You know what's working, you know what's not working, you know what they like and what they don't like, and you can work from that.
Of course, you can. The keyword research, finding out which platform works as well. It's
seasonality as well.
Exactly.
Like, finding all that out. But for a smart campaign, it's just like.
And then to take on from one. So if we get a client from a smart campaign, it makes it pretty much now not impossible, but so difficult for us to extract all the good information from it, and then to start new campaigns which are performing just as good as the smart campaign to what the client sees. Because obviously, the conversions are automatically set up by Google Ads, and it just makes life difficult because at some point you're going to have to move away from it. But at that point, you're always going to take a dip because you're going to need to find where you are with your search ad, for example. So it might be a quick win on the short term, but in the long term, it's always going to be a dip.
Yeah, I really think that for smart campaigns, it's like if we take a campaign over, say from someone who's working in house. And then I always feel like with our expertise and the fact that this is all we do day in, day out, I would always expect us to improve that campaign's performance by at least 20%.
For sure, yeah.
Just by going through, it's even the little things. I mean, we could probably do a whole another episode on like the checklist that we go through, like the settings, the targeting, the ad rotation, the ad testing, all the stuff that people don't do enough of because they're busy. You're working in house, and everything like that. So. All the stuff that we do as standard, I'd like to think that with the account, once we've got everything set up properly, which does take time, and I know that PPC people often think of it as like instant and a quick win or whatever, but to do it properly, it takes time to do the research and the testing and everything. But once you've got that set up, you should improve that by 20%. It's impossible with a smart campaign.
No, of course it is. Because they set the goals, or they set the goals to begin with. So when we actually go in, we realign the goals, we set our own conversion actions up. From the client's point of view, they think that campaign was successful, but is it actually providing that ROI that they originally thought? And then we're having to rework that. But I couldn't agree more, obviously, with what you're saying, yeah, for sure.
I mean, the one thing that, obviously, people who watching this know Digital 22, we are 100% HubSpot. So every client that we work with is on HubSpot. And what I didn't realise before I worked here is that how good HubSpot is with PPC. So if you've got someone who's getting leads in or something like that, even for our own PPC, doing that has helped me realise the ROI. If you saw, I used to do a lot in e-commerce, so it was people would come in, they'd buy, you could see the ROI. It's easy to track kind of thing. But if you're getting leads in and you're using something like HubSpot, and then you go into all the HubSpot tools like the forecast reporting, all that kind of stuff, where you can see, what they're opening, what the emails are interacting with, and everything like that. It just makes it so much better 100%. Having stuff like that. But could you imagine trying to get any of those insights from like a smart campaign? It'd be a pain in the backside.
It'd be impossible, yeah. No, HubSpot, it benefits it massively because you don't only get the lead and the information, you get the MQL, SQL, and then you can sort of qualify it even further. And if it goes back to if a campaign's producing more SQLs but the CPA is higher, it justifies it, and that's obviously you're as good as the information that you've got. But yeah, HubSpot and PPC, they kind of work very well together, I'd say. Yeah.
And then just going into the last point on Google changing the goalposts, like we are a Google Premier Partner. So we have been for, I think it was since just after I started it, I think we achieved Premier Partner status. And that goes off everything like, the accounts that you run, the amount of revenue, the amount of qualifications that you've got, and everything like that. And then Google, they introduced something, I think it was two years ago now, the recommendations tab in Google Ads, which, the recommendations in there, they're a bit naff.
Yeah,
they're a bit naff to say the least.
Suggestions.
Yeah, suggestions. So one of the suggestions will always be increase your budget. You could be spending like thousands a day, but it'll still say, oh yeah, you're limited by budget. So it's always increase your budget. It's always adding more more ad types, so you can spend more money. And it's also the ads, like suggested ads, they're some of the worst ever. Why would you let someone who doesn't understand the campaign, the company, the person responsible for it at their end, why would you just let Google just write some random ads.
They go off a data-driven decision, but it's not always the answer to some extent.
No, I mean, I don't, like I mentioned, like, it sounds like I'm hating on AI, but I'm not, because I think it does have a place eventually. But you just got to get there. I mean, like, I don't think it'll ever replay it. And as well, they're really sneaky with it, because it'll always have, you know, suggested ads on. That's always on. You've actually got to go in and turn it off.
Turn it off to begin with. Yeah.
Now it should always be you've got to turn it on.
Yeah, it's same with when you set up the campaign and the automated, you push to it straight away, aren't you? And it's a case of you have to undo what Google's already tried to do for you.
And if you ever ring up and say, "Oh, I don't think it's performing really well," they'll just tell you to up your budget.
Of course you will.
Always, but yeah. So for partner status, I mean, so it's like you've got to have over 70%.
I think so.
On the optimization score from their recommendations, which don't always benefit the account. I'm trying to word it.
It's just
really
ticking
nicely.
boxes, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not
ticking
necessarily
boxes. It
going to
doesn't exactly improve performance.
No, exactly. It's just ticking the boxes for the account setup and all the things which lie behind it, I suppose.
Yeah, so it does that, and it's like that's not great for the account. But then it's things like, you know, because we've got an MCC, which is a client account where we run all our client accounts through, and obviously lots of people have access to that. So now I think we've got to have something. Bearing in mind there's 2 PPC specialists in a company of 45 people. 45 people. So they're saying that we need to have 15 Google Ads certified people to hit Premier status, when there's only 2 of us that work in it.
Which is a bit absurd, really, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and we can do the certifications until, you know, the cows come home, but I don't think we'll ever, between us, you know, get all them done for everyone.
No.
So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the fan. And I left that to the end because I thought I was going to go on a big rant about it, but I've actually...
You've controlled yourself.
Yeah, I control myself. I can see Jonathan looking at me from the side of the screen, that's all it is. So it's just making me not go on a full-on rant about it. But, I mean, that's what frustrates us with Google Ads, I think, pretty much working it every day and everything like that. But, I mean, anyone who's watching this, and if you run Google Ads or you have run Google Ads, what frustrates you about Google Ads? I mean, what is it that really, you know, every day if you're in there, is it the reporting, is it the conversions, is it the tracking? I mean, something that I didn't even add on here is that Google Ads and Google Analytics never match up 100%.
No.
And they're both Google products.
Same product.
And I still can't use Google Ads on my Chromebook.
No.
That's not even going on the list. But, you know, that's what it is. So yeah, if anyone's got anything that they think that really frustrates them about Google Ads, get in touch. Jonathan's going to put our LinkedIn profiles here about now. There we go. And then you can get in touch with us, right into the YouTube or anything like that, put it on the channel. And then if you've got anything that you want us to talk about, then we'll happily talk about it on one of the next episodes. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
I've been Chris. I'll still be Chris next time.
And I'm Christian still for next time, yeah, for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone.